Hi, family. We are in our Holy Week as Jewish believers, as Christian believers, our Muslim family. They've already had their holy time, but this is our Passover week. And I wanted to come in and just share with you some of the facts. I've been so honored. The Jewish community here in America is very gracious and loving. They are. I have been to many Seders. I even had a dear friend, Dr. Mark Ellis, who is now on the other side. So I shout him out, Dr. Mark Ellis, Ashe, 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 oh. I went to visit him and he shared the Shabbat going into the Sabbath. He shared that meal with me, and I was so honored. Just like Jewish brothers and sisters for many years have shared the Passover meal with me, and even those that I worship with as the spiritual leader, we have been privy to that. And I am so thankful for their kindness and their loving kindness that they give to all of the community. They're never trying, in my assessment, they're never trying to be misunderstood. They come in to educate so that maybe things that happened in World War II would not happen again. But we're going to do an African centered, and I'm going to tell you why. The Passover Haggadah demands that each person see him or herself as having personally come forth out of slavery. There you go. So we have celebrated many years with our Jewish community. And when I say it's yummy, it's yummy. You see this matzah right here. One time a gentleman cooked it exactly the way they would have cooked it out in Egypt over a fire and stuff. I couldn't chew it. It was so hard. I could have slapped you and knocked you up with it. How they were able to eat that, I do not know. But they probably dipped it in something to soften it. But they would also take the matzah, the seders that I've been honored to be a part of in the Jewish community. Excuse me. They would dip it in chocolate. Baby. All I can say is that chocolate was so good. And one of my elders said, Pastor, we're eating too much. I was like, I know. It was so good. But see yourself, whatever. For some people, it may be coming out of a time when you thought you had to do real hard labor, and then you were able to finish your degree. And now you're sitting in an office or you own your own building and business. See yourself coming forth personally out of a time that you felt that something had enslaved you. That's what this time is about. So as we do our African-centered, there's a whole plate. So we'll utilize the plate as well. Now, let me say this. The reason we're doing this, I have been teaching those that I walk with that we came to the shores in 1619 speaking Semitic languages. So this is not divorced of our history at all. At all. And they have come into an understanding of that. So we'll use the Seder plate and everything, but it's going to be African-centered in that we're, as descendants of those who were drugged to these shores and so mistreated and still many times mistreated in this country. We're going to honor those. We happen to know that our church was started by 4 slaves. So we're going to call the roll, call the names. Yes, we are. So what's on this plate? The Seder plate has green vegetable carpus. So that's usually parsley. It represents the initial flourishing of the Israelites during the first years in Egypt. Now, we've had times that we have flourished in some ways. Our flourishing in this country has been surviving. We have flourished in a way that we survived everything that was thrown at us, everything. We let nothing take us off our game. We knew that we had to be survivors in the game and not let anything take us out. So at the end of the biblical book, Genesis, Joseph moves his family to Egypt. So it's during those times of Joseph was second in command, like he was the vice president of Egypt at that time. And all of his family came in because of this great, time when people needed food and things like that. They were having difficulties, and all the nomads had to come in. and buy food from them because God had given Joseph a dream. So this is remembering the good times when they came in. But as times went on, they were no longer like friends of the executive branch or any of the branches of the Egyptian government. They became the slaves of the government. So you're going to get that carpus. And then as we go on, you're going to get Haroset. I may not name everything, but Haroset was one of my favorites. It's sweet fruit and it's a paste, and it symbolizes the mortar that they would mix up as they were building for the Egyptian people. So for us, it symbolizes all the things that we had to bring together to build this country. So this mix of fruits, wine, or honey and nuts symbolizes the mortar that the Israelite slaves used to construct buildings for Pharaoh. So for us, it utilizes those things that we brought together, our knowledge on how to cultivate rice fields, how to cultivate cotton fields, how to cultivate all of the farming that went on in this country. We did that. Yeah, we did. So the name itself comes from the Hebrew word chorez, or clay, haroset. But when I say this is yummy, my Jewish sisters, oh boy, they mix that up. I would just like I was eating the matzah dipped in chocolate. And I was like, okay, Charlotte Pastor Caldwell's looking kind of greedy, but they were always so welcoming. And let me say this, everything, when you go to a Seder, everything that you have, so we have already purchased matzah for our African Center Seder that we will have, but everything you have, it has no yeast in it, because yeast represents those things that rise up in you that are not good. So we know that as sin. Those things that rise up. So you strip out yeast because you want no representation of those things that are not good, that rise up in people, that cause people to be cruel, to cause people to ignore people's humanity, that cause people to think they can own other people. That part. So then you have marar, bitter herb, or horseradish. Yeah, one time I ran in late to a Seder and dipped my little cracker in there and didn't realize it was horseradish. I had tears. My nose was running. It's not to be played with. My daughter, my oldest daughter, loves it. It's not one of my favorites. It's just a little too much for me. But this bitter herbs allows us to taste the bitterness of slavery. Today, most Jewish use horseradish as marar. Originally, though, marar was probably a bitter lettuce, such as romaine or root or chicory. So the bitter herb represents those bitter times. But see, we all can locate that in a life that is being lived. What were the bitter times for you? Was it your childhood? Was it just getting through school because people did not treat you properly? Was it trying to get through the hard work you had to do working? I know for me, I used to work 2 jobs and I was in college when I was younger. And people would be like, where are you on the weekends? Baby, I'm asleep. Or trying to get to the library if you had midterms or finals. I was trying to understand things. What are the bitter times? So as we do our African centered, we will talk about the bitter times of the Middle Passage, the bitter times of slavery, the bitter times of the Civil War, the Revolutionary War. Yeah, we were there. The bitter times of Jim Crow, even the bitter times of the Civil Rights Movement, the bitter times we've had in the military, and even the bitter times that are here now. We're going to discuss it all as we celebrate the things that are passing over. Now, let me remind you, Passover has to do with those who would not acknowledge God's people, but wanted to keep them snared and enslaved financially, enslaved physically. The things that came that were to hurt and harm did not touch God's people. It got those people that had minds that wanted to sit there and devise all different type of ways to hurt the people and to harm the people. Don't you forget, Charlotte, Pastor Caldwell just told you that. Those that sit in high, lofty places, instead of doing what's right and what's good for the masses, they sit and plan ways. We'll take this from them. We'll make this a hardship. They're going to have to suffer that. Yet they're the ones that got caught up. The frogs came to their house. The lice came to their house. The flies came to their house. The boils were on their bodies, not the people. So Passover, Pesach, those things that passed you by, baby, but hit those people who didn't know what it was to understand the humanity of other people, but discounted other people's humanity as if they were only here to serve. Everyone is a child of the living God. Everyone. So Zorora, the shank bone, they used to have that bone there and it looked so good. I was like, I bet the meat on it was good. It is a roasted lamb shank bone that symbolizes the lamb that our Jewish brothers and sisters sacrificed as a special Passover offering when the temple stood in Jerusalem. So the Zorora does not play an active role in the Seder, but serves as a visual reminder of the sacrifice that the children of Israel offered immediately before leaving Egypt. So now the main thing that passed them over was the death angel. Now, those that, again, that were devising all the hardship, didn't want to let them go, became even more and more cruel to them and found ways to be cruel. Yeah, it stopped at their house. The death spirit stopped at their house, like the flies were at their house, the lice was at their house, the frogs, the boils. So remember this. This is Holy Week. Think on these things. There's a lot to think about. Do not discount your own history. So the beitza, the egg, this is the most important part for me, because I did a whole teaching about why the eggs. And sometimes, I don't celebrate, me personally, I don't celebrate Easter. I celebrate Passover. Easter, Esther, is an entirely different deity. And I've gotten in trouble sometimes for mentioning that as a Christian pastor. But the truth is the truth. I was called to tell the truth and wake up the lions, not the sheep. So a roasted or hard-boiled egg. So that's part of what's on the plate. A roasted or hard, you see it here. You see it. Get my finger to go right there. You go. There's the egg. And you see the parsley and the horseradish, the matzah. You see all those things. So a roasted or hard-boiled egg that symbolizes higiga, sacrifice, which would be offered on every holiday, including Passover, when the temple stood. The roundness, this is what you need to hear. The roundness of the egg also represents the cycle of life. Even in the most painful of times, there's always hope for a new beginning. So for some, this week, I know some lost the majority of their retirement, all type of things. Some lost all of their money because of the things that went on. That egg represents the cycle of life, even the most painful of times. And this has been a painful week for many. Remember those minds that devise things to strip people of things and fill their coffers. They're the ones that the flies are going to visit, that the lice is going to visit. It's not going to pass them over, but it's going to pass you over in this time. It's going to pass you over. There's always hope for a new beginning. I believe we are in a time of Bereshit, beginnings. Yeah, it seems like all of that chaos is around us, but we're going to celebrate. I know I am going to celebrate with those that I walk with. So I want to tell you, so in addition to the items that I've talked about that are on the Seder table, there's also 3 pieces of matzah wrapped or covered in a cloth and a container of salt water or vinegar in which to dip the karpas, that's the parsley and things in. Some Seder plates have a compartment for matzah underneath or include a space for salt water among the other symbols. In most cases, though, matzah and salt water or vinegar sit near but not on the Seder plate. Now, many contemporary Hebrews add additional items to the Seder plate, like they'll add an orange, and things like that, which honors the role of women or gays and lesbians in Jewish life. Don't you love that? So now the Jewish community, you have the Reformed Jewish community, you have the conservative, and then you have, what is it? The conventional, I think it's those that are real strict, like the Hasidic, and although those are very strict. So basically you have those, the Reformed, they seem to be a little more what we would call in this American language liberal. And then you have the very conservative, they're a little more strict. So, but when you are part of a Reformed Jewish synagogue, they're not going to look at you and say, you can't be gay, you can't, they're not going to do any of that. They're not. So I'll stop there because I don't want to go too long. But remember, this is Passover week. And many times this means everything that was meant for your hurt and harm, God says correction is coming to your house. See, people need to stop thinking and sitting and devising ways to take people's hard-earned money, to strip them of further of their humanity. My prayer this week is the God that is the God of restoration will show up mightily in this country and in this world to restore. As the psalmist said, I will restore to you this and more. Restore now to the people who were stripped wrongly from the land. Restore, God. Restore to those who just want to worship you in the way historically their ancestors have worshiped you. Restore, God, this and more. Restore the dignity and the historical aspects of who we are as African descended people, those who are in the image of the Most High God. Restore, God, this and more. So as you celebrate Passover, some of you may have been practicing Lent. That's where you fast from one thing. Most people choose just one thing and they fast for 40 days. I know most people where I worship, they will not have anything sweet. It's not something that I've often participated in until maybe the last 12, 13 years. Because I feel like I sacrifice, or I may do a fast during the year, but that's just me personally. So I don't want to tell anyone how to worship, but whatever your worship practice is, whether it's Buddhism, Christianity, the Islamic faith, Sikh, Hinduism, however you worship, those special times, honor your God. So I know as we do the rewrite, we're going to talk about the separation of the government and religion and the freedom of religion and what it really means. Just like we have to spell out we the people, we're going to have to spell that out. But as we go through this week, Passover, think about all the hard things that passed over you or the things you got through in spite of. Yeah, let's do that.